IVM.
The Paodcast is an IVM production, and if you enjoy listening to our show, you should definitely check out IVM Likes by the Indusbox Media staff. It's your weekly dose of pop culture recommendations, whether it's books, movies, or TV shows.
You're listening to the Paodcast, presented by the Daily Pao.
This is Pranati,
Amit,
and Purva, and we're from the Daily Pao, a Bombay-specific food and culture platform, and this is our weekly podcast, the Paodcast. Now, this episode is an installment of The Scene, in which we talk about culture in the city, and today we're going to be talking about cultural events to look forward to in November and December. So stay tuned for The Scene.
Long, long ago, not in Bethlehem, but in a place nearby, there was a wonderful birth of a huge show, which I like to call Cyrus Says. A show that encapsulates everything in human history, from the first Homo sapien to the last Homo sapien, who's traversed the entire world and then come back to India. This is a show which tells you everything about everything. If you want to know, avoid Google, come to us. It's called Cyrus Says. Get new episodes every Monday on the IVM Podcast app or wherever you get your podcasts on. You get one banana water free with every podcast. Right. I'll just check that.
The Scene.
On this episode of The Scene, we're going to be talking about cultural events that you can look forward to in November and December. There are lots of gigs and plays and literature festivals that are coming up. Amit, you have a whole list of gigs.
Yeah, well, I'm just going to be talking about the major gigs, by which I mean gigs in stadiums and auditoriums. And of course, the biggest gig this year has been, to look forward to is really Ed Sheeran, who's
coming again.
Yeah, who performed here in March 2015, but that was pre-Shape of You. And,
This is Ed Sheeran post pre-Shape of You.
Yeah, and he's really sort of like, I think his popularity has like quadrupled since then. And he's supposed to perform at the Reliance Jio Garden. I say supposed to because he recently cancelled a string of dates in Asia, in Southeast Asia, because he had a bike accident.
Are you tracking his career?
No, this was just like announced on like music websites.
Yeah, Amit is a closet Ed Sheeran fan.
I don't mind Ed Sheeran. I'm not like sort of I don't know what they're called, Sheeranites or Sheerheads or Edheads. I really don't know what they're called. But so basically he had this bicycle accident where he got knocked over by a car and he broke his wrist or his arm or something. And Ed Sheeran, if you aware, he is basically a one-man band. He has this sort of loop station that he uses, and so he's not like a traditional singer-songwriter. If he had a band, then this wouldn't really affect his tour because he just has to sing. But because he's this one-man show, probably I think that's also what makes him pretty economical to take around the world. He's had this accident, now his arms need to heal, and that's why he's cancelled a bunch of tour dates. Luckily, his India tour date is November 19th, which is, so they're still about like a month away, and
What do his doctors say?
Doctors say that he probably will be fine by then, but you never know. It really depends on how.
Oh, you really are an Ed Sheeran fan of it.
This is like information for music fans.
Are you attending the gig, Amit?
Probably not. Because I saw him in 2 years ago when he came, and I really don't fancy being crushed by a sea of 14-year-old girls. That's what happened the last time. And, to be fair, if somebody sort of like said, here, take a ticket to the VIP section, I might like go, but I don't know. Well, that's probably not going to happen. But yeah, so that's the major one. And so like I say, that there's a chance it might not happen, but there's a whole bunch of other gigs happening in November, starting with Tinariven, which is this sort of world music band. They're very big in the world music scene. They've won a lot of Grammys and stuff, and they're going to be performing at the Royal Opera House. Now, the gig is almost sold out and probably will be sold out by the time our podcast airs on Monday. But the good thing is that they are performing at this venue. Their gig has actually been programmed by this new venue called the Quarter. The Quarter is housed in the compound of the Opera House. And so they do these large ticket gigs they're going to do at the Opera House. And they're also going to do a bunch of smaller gigs. And
the venue is just about to open.
It's just going to open as well. It would have opened by the time this podcast is out. It's supposed to open on Thursday, the 26th. And I know that they've planned a couple of big Indian independent music acts. For example, they're going to have Blackstrap Blues and Indus Creed. And what they're going to do is that they have something called an artist in residence program where they'll do 2 gigs. They'll do one big gig at the Opera House and they'll do a much smaller gig at the Quarter. Now, the Quarter is actually 4 different venues. The main one is a music venue. And I think it just has a seating capacity about 80 people. And it's one of the founders is Ashu Phatak from Blue Frog, who used to run Blue Frog, and Ranjit Barot, who is a veteran jazz drummer and composer. So they put together the programming for this. And so I think it's going to end up being like a sort of mini Blue Frog, but really intimate. Blue Frog was like, I think, 600 capacity. This is like 100 capacity at max. And as part of this artist in residence program, they're going to have one big gig at the Opera House for which Ranjit Barot will do special arrangements. So, for instance, they're starting off this week. This concert would have happened by the time our podcast is out, where they're getting electro pop duo Parakh Singh to do a concert with a string quartet. And Ranjit has basically specially arranged music for the string quartet, and they're going to sort of collaborate together. And then at the Quarter, the following day, they're going to do, at Live at the Quarter, which is what the music venue is called, they're going to be doing a cover set, but they'll do covers of only stuff that they, music that they are influenced by and inspired by, and it's going to be fairly a wide range of stuff, not only just their, influences from while growing up, but even artists they're listening to right now. So they're going to play everything from Steely Dan to Drake.
Wow, that's quite a range.
Yeah. So for world music fans, apart from Tunarivan, which you probably, if you haven't got a ticket, you're probably not going to be able to go for, there is another exciting gig happening on November the 12th at the NCPA as part of their Sufi music festival called Sama. This is Shai Benzur and Rajasthan Express. Now, if you're familiar with basically, I mean, if you follow world music, you'd be aware that this is basically the project that he had performed some years ago at a music festival in Rajasthan, and Johnny Greenwood from Radiohead collaborated with him on this project. But I don't think he's going to come, but this will be essentially this. And it was also a
film, right?
A film,
by
right?
Paul Thomas Anderson.
Thomas Anderson, filmed this, documented this, and it was part of a film that was shown at the Mumbai Film Festival.
That's right, a couple of years
ago, yeah. So that's for world music fans. For Bollywood music fans, I mean, we rarely ever talk about Bollywood, but there are 2 gigs that I think actually might be worth checking out. A.R. Rahman is doing like a big world tour, like a multi-city tour, of the country, where he's going to be celebrating 25 years in the music business. I think 1992 is when Roja was released. So he's going to do a mix of all his greatest hits, and he's going to perform at the Brabant Stadium. And that's on December 17th in Bombay. And actually much earlier than that, there's Arijit Singh, also on November 12th, the same date as Shai Benzur, who's going to be performing at MMRDA grounds. Arijit Singh, if you know Bollywood music, he's basically taken over the industry. He sings
so
almost
popular
every song. Yeah, he sings
because he's constantly part of these big Bollywood gigs.
Yeah, so like stuff like the Bollywood Music Project, and he's also one of the few that has been like doing live gigs a lot, which not many Bollywood playback singers don't really do too many gigs, but he has been doing them like for the past few years now. He's really sort of pioneered that, and I think he can probably sell out MMRDA grounds, for whatever capacity gig they're going to do this with. But and he's literally had like every big hit of the past few years in Bollywood has been an Arijit Singh song. I mean, it started off with stuff like Ashiki 2, and he's had there's stuff from Girwa, from Dilwale, and like just any sort of major, think of a major ballad, and it's probably by Arijit Singh. So those are the 2 big Bollywood things. And then there's also, Bollywood is also part of this thing called the world's biggest guest list festival. Now, a few years ago, Hardwell, this Dutch electronic music producer, tried to set this world record for the largest free concert ever. And he performed at the D.Y. Patil Stadium. And again, it was one of those things, I think, that you could just sign up and register, and like a lottery, we won tickets. And I think reportedly there were 70,000 people who attended that gig, which set some sort of Guinness record. But for India and for Bombay specifically, that was actually broken by another free concert, which was the Coldplay concert, the Global Citizen Festival, where apparently 80,000 people showed up. But now this year they're doing this as a 3-day festival, Hardwell will be performing on the third day, and it's going to run from December 1st to the 3rd. And on the first day, they're going to have Bollywood, and Arman Malik, who's this other upcoming composer, is going to be performing along with a bunch of other...
Is he any relation to Anu Malik?
I think he's his nephew, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but I don't think Anu Malik is part of it. And for electronic music fans, there's also Kygo. Kygo is this
Everyone
producer.
knows Kygo.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know who
Covers.
Kygo is. Who is
okay.
Kygo?
Well, Amit will tell you then.
Well, he is this Norwegian producer who's had a few big hits in the recent past. His most recent, he recently did a song with Selena Gomez called It Ain't Me. Now he remixed U2's latest single. So he's like...
I'm sure you've heard like this really popular remix of Sexual Healing. That's also Kygo.
Maybe.
So yeah,
I don't know.
so he's going to be performing in Bombay. He's going to be performing here on November 26th.
Oh, I imagine that's going to be a really popular one as well, because Kygo was pretty huge until last year.
I mean, he's pretty huge this year. He's had these big remixes this year too.
Right.
And this is part of the Sunburn Arena gig series. And Sunburn, of course, it's an electronic music festival which used to happen in Goa, now happening in Pune. May or may not happen in Pune, you don't know. They're always running into sort of
Trouble with the authorities.
The venue hasn't been decided for this yet, so, but I mean, tickets are already on sale for most of these gigs. All of them, I think, are on Book My Show, except for Arijit Singh, which is on Insider. So yeah, so that's what the music calendar looks like for the next couple of months. Of course, this is gig season, so there's always something happening every week, major music events. So yeah, and you just follow us on our social media to keep track of them.
Yeah. Well, there are some, theatre and literature events as well, perhaps not such large-scale events. There's a small play called Half-Breed that's been written and performed by a British theatre artist called Natasha Marshall and directed by Miranda Cromwell. And it's an autobiographical performance about Jazz, the only non-white girl in an English village. And when I read this description, I thought of that British comedy series. Do you remember which one I'm talking about? The only gay in the village.
yeah, Little Britain.
Little Britain, yeah. Now, I mean, this is...
I'm sure this is going to be very different.
Yeah, I'm sure it's going to be very different. This is obviously... it's funny. It's supposed to be funny, but it's also very serious. But that's the first thing I thought of when I read the description. So that's at G5A, Foundation for Contemporary Culture. And it's from November 1st to November 5th. So several shows. Then there's Salam Noni Appa. And this has been, the reason why we're laughing is that it's based on this book called The Legend of Lakshmi Prasad by Twinkle
The Legend
Khanna.
of Lakshmi Prasad is it's the biggest story in the book. It's a collection of short stories by Twinkle Khanna.
Right.
And Legend of Lakshmi Prasad, in fact, is going to be adapted into a film called Padman, starring Akshay Kumar, Twinkle Khanna's husband.
Right. And so this is a play based on this story, and it's called Salam Noni Appa, and it's been directed by Lilette Dubé, and she's also starring in it. And it's got two other theatre veterans. There's Darshan Jariwala and Jayati Bhatia, both of whom are very funny. Jayati Bhatia does this fantastic turn in the vagina monologues, and she's funny in everything. Yeah. So there's Salam Noni Appa,
which I have read, and it's basically about this. It's a sweet story about this couple who are sort of this middle-aged couple who find love in their autumn years.
Right. Then there's the Three-Penny Opera, which is Imad Shah's version of the classic Brecht play, and this is the final play in Adyam's third season, and this is going to be on November 10th and 11th at St. Andrews. Then there is a Bollywood production. Usually in Bombay you don't see too many of these Bollywood stage productions, and this one is called Balle Balle. And obviously it's about a wedding.
It's about a big fat Punjabi wedding.
Exactly.
I can tell you that just from the title.
Just from the title and just from the picture. It's on November. It's got several shows from November 10th to the 30th, except Mondays. And it's at the Bal Gandharva Rang Mandir in Bandra. It's been directed by Virav Sarkari and produced by Wizcraft, which has also done these huge stage productions. Zangura is the most famous one, and it's in Delhi.
Yeah,
Mostly
they're all
staged
staged in Delhi, and it's surprising that they're bringing these here. I think they've realized that if shows like Mughal-e-Azam by the NCPA, they have had such success with that obviously there's an audience for this kind of stuff.
I mean, I guess it's it's a no-brainer. It's a wedding spectacle, and it's got a ton of Bollywood songs.
Yeah, and I mean, I think previously people thought that why would you take Bollywood to Bollywood? But clearly,
people can't get enough of it.
Yeah.
Then there's Tata Lit Live, which is one of two literature festivals that happen at the end of the year. The other one is the Times of India Lit Fest. The announcement for that hasn't been made yet. But Tata Lit Live will take place from November 16th to the 19th at the NCPA and Prithvi. And they've announced a partial lineup. And it consists of Thomas Friedman, famous writer. He wrote The World is Flat. Then there's Devdutt Patnaik, everyone's favorite writer on myth. Yeah. There's Marcus du Sautoy, who has spoken in Lit Fests in India before. He's a writer, and he's also a professor of mathematics at Oxford. There's a philosopher, A.C. Grayling. There's Homi Bhabha, India's most famous academic. There's Gary Steingart, who writes for a whole bunch of American newspapers and magazines, and he's also a novelist. He's very funny.
He's very funny.
Yeah,
I love his writing.
Then there's Boria Majumdar, who's a sports writer. There's Jeet Thail, whose new book is soon to be out. It's called The Book of Chocolate Saints, and it's about the painter F.N. Souza, who also featured in his first book, Narcopolis. Then there's Mukul Kesavan, T.M. Krishna, the Carnatic music vocalist, and city writers Kiran Nagarkar and Jerry Pinto. So, a pretty interesting lineup to look forward to.
Yeah, and then sort of totally at the other end, maybe at the other end of the spectrum, well, not totally, but sort of also related to literature, is Comic Con, which is happening, the Mumbai edition, which is not as on as grand a scale as the Delhi edition, because I think that's what they're headquartered. But for this time round, the special guests that they've announced are this is going to take place on November 11th and 12th at the Bombay Exhibition Centre in Goregaon. And this time around, they've got Nick Seluk, who is the creator of this popular webcomic called The Awkward Yeti, but he's also known for Heart and Brain, which you might be familiar with this comic strip.
Yeah, I do. I follow both of them on Instagram.
So people are constantly sharing Heart and Brain for some reason.
And they're really basic, simple stuff. Even, a school kid will know what they're talking about, but they're cute and it's simplicity.
And they're also getting a couple of famous illustrators. There's David Lloyd, who is best known for V for Vendetta, and they're getting Andrew Griffith, who is an illustrator of the Transformers comic series. Yeah.
That's a pretty good lineup.
Yeah, but they've only announced these three major names so far, and I think they will have more, as they get closer to the date. Well, in the next couple of weeks, actually, it is. So.
Okay. And finally, there's the exhibition India and the World: A History in 9 Stories. This will be at the Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj Vastu Sangrahalaya.
Also known as the CSMVS.
CSMVS, formerly known as the Prince of Wales Museum. It opens on the 11th of November. Now, this is a collaboration between CSMBS and the British Museum, and it presents the history of the subcontinent in 9 parts. So there are about more than 210 objects, and the story of the subcontinent is divided into parts such as, the birth of civilization and, trade across the Indian Ocean and so on and so forth. And the objects will be sourced from the British Museum, from some museums around the country, as well as the CSMVS's own collection. So it promises to be a pretty major exhibition.
And they're getting these things are sort of some very rare artifacts, right?
That's right. They're supposed to be quite rare, and I think they'll be unearthing some stuff from the CSMVS's own collection, not all of which is on display. Yeah, so that's a lot to do in November and December. Mainly November. This is, of course, the heart of the culture season, so there will be more stuff coming along.
So this is just the stuff we know of right now. But yeah, basically, take out your diaries and mark out all these dates because, there's a lot to check out.
So that's it for this episode of the Paodcast, and we'll be back next week.
For regular updates on the city, you can follow our Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter accounts with the Daily Pao on all three. You can listen to the podcast on the IVM website, the IVM app, and your favorite podcasting platform.
एक्सक्यूज मी भैया, एक्सक्यूज मी,
बोलिए मैडम।
मेन्यू में क्या है?
मेन्यू में सीन अनसीन है, पॉडकास्ट है, ऑन कोर्स है, साइरस है, मेड इन इंडिया, रीडिस्कवरी प्रोजेक्ट, एम्पावरिंग सीरीज, सेक्स वैक्स है, IVM लाइक्स है, सिंप्लीफाइड है, कीपिंग इट क्वियर है, टिंग्स एंड डेस्टिनेशन है, माय नेबर सकरबर्ग है और द फैन गराज है। आपको क्या चाहिए?
एक बार रिपीट कर देंगे क्या?
रिपीट नहीं करता हम। आप जाओ IVMpodcast.com पे और सुनो ये सब, या फिर डाउनलोड करो उनका ऐप, सब आपकी उंगलियों पे।